One of the more annoying tasks when doing any kind of digital set work or design visualization work is creating things like the trim on objects, like the trim along the floorboards, creating a series of piping that moves around corners and through ductwork. Anything where you're creating stuff that's essentially an extruded shape following a path tends to be a bit annoying to build because you have to do it in the lofter, which has a lot more functionality to it than you often need for this type of task. So in this case, we've created a new modifier called Sweep, which is like a simplified, specialized lofting tool. So what it allows me to do is work with a shape. In this case, I've got a line that I've drawn around the perimeter of this room. It goes all the way around, called the floor trim line. And what I'm going to do is turn that into the trim. So to do this, I'm just going to go and add a modifier called Sweep. Throw that in there. And by default, it has a number of standard cross-section shapes that it can work with. So for instance, I could throw a pipe shape on there, and you could then use this to create piping through an environment. We can also go in and create half rounds. You can create angle bar, channel bar if you wanted to create, for instance, ductwork and stuff like that. All different types of choices you can work with, even I-beams. Now, in this case, I want to use a custom selection, so I'm just going to go to Custom, and then I say Pick, and there's a little shape here I drew, which is the floor trim cross-section, and you can see that's now popped on there. And once you've got a shape on your loft, you have a number of things you can do with it. You can mirror it, so you can, in this case I flipped it around facing the other way, I can turn it upside down. I can go in and actually adjust the offsets, so how far off of the line it is. I can even put it at an angle, so it angles in and out. And then I also have pivot alignment, so I can take wherever the pivot is on that shape and then align it in a certain way to the shape, to the line that it's lofting on. So I can go in and make quick adjustments to put it in different orientations around that shape. So we just lay that there. And then of course, much like all the other new mapping features, we now have things like real-world map size applied to this. You can generate mapping coordinates. And of course, this whole thing can be easily updated if the underlying curve that this is following is originally coming from, say, Revit or AutoCAD or Arch Desktop. Then that curve can automatically be updated whenever a change happens in their DWG files. So there are a number of ways you can work with this functionality. Lest you think that the only thing we can do with Sweep is extrude a shape along a single spline, I've got this scene here where I've created a bunch of different spline objects and I've connected them together into one spline cage. So you can see they cross each other. We've got some curves, some sharp corners, things like that. And with this shape started, I'm just going to go in and pick that same Sweep tool. And here we go. It's now swept this channel choice along all of the curves automatically, so much more than you could do easily with a lofting tool. But not only that, if we actually zoom in close, I want you to notice at the intersections, it's actually booleaning them together. It's doing a union on these. If you don't want that, there is a setting for it in the side panel called Union Intersection, so you can turn that off and then the different objects will just be passing through each other. But obviously for the best geometry, you're going to want to have union intersections. So again, this is just an example of what can be done with this modifier. You can see how it could quite easily handle things like complex piping in, say, a science fiction type of environment, or dealing with ductwork going through a building. Anything where it's obviously extrudable objects, but in this case it can also deal with the fact that they might intersect each other, pass over each other, and deal with a number of shapes at once.